In this episode of The Quite Frankly Show, I talk about the 5 lessons that I've learned to grow as an entrepreneur. Check it out.
It's now time for The Quite Frankly Show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 2 of The Quite Frankly Show. Today, I want to talk about 5 lessons that I've learned to grow as an entrepreneur. And I was asked this recently. I was asked to give a talk about 5 lessons I've learned, and I sat down and thought about, what are 5 moves I made as an entrepreneur to really grow and to, I don't mean just grow the company's revenue, but just to grow myself as an entrepreneur and grow my thinking and grow, the company's capabilities, et cetera, et cetera. And as I thought about this, I thought, I wanted to share this with you guys because these were the things that I didn't do early on. And looking back, I wish I would have done them sooner. So let's get into it. I want to share with you. Number 1 was this idea of alliances and partnerships. So one of the things that we did was we partnered with different software companies to not only bring more capabilities to our clients and our team, but we found partners that not only could help us in terms of revenue growth because they provided commission opportunities, but they were there to help us position around something. And in those alliances and partnerships, we got connected to other communities, we got connected to other opportunities. We saw things about how to do business that we otherwise wouldn't have seen. So alliances and partnerships can be really powerful, especially when you get with like-minded entrepreneurs, which will be a theme in these lessons that I'm sharing with you today, is this idea of connecting with like-minded entrepreneurs. So on that note, the second thing that I did was I joined a peer group. So I'm part of an organization called Entrepreneurs Organization, or EO for short. And the idea of a peer group is that you get around other people who are around your similar size in terms of company, your similar role, and you're sharing all the struggles that you're dealing with in being an entrepreneur and running a company. And you're talking to people who understand what those struggles are like. And on the other side of that, when you have those big wins, they also understand that too. I mean, imagine going to the next birthday party gathering of your friends that you go to, and imagine saying something like, oh, you know what, we hit $5 million this year, super stoked, like we hit our goal. Like, most people aren't going to get that. That's gonna come across as bragging. But when you talk with your entrepreneur friends and you get into a peer group where people understand each other, they're gonna give you high fives and they're gonna understand like what it took to actually make that happen. Like when you tell somebody, hey, we hit 5 million in revenue and we're super stoked, an entrepreneur will understand everything that went into that, like the blood, the sweat, the tears. So peer groups are really important because it's your opportunity to get that kind of understanding and have an outlet, because who else are you going to go to talk about these struggles? So second thing, peer groups are really important. Okay, so the third lesson I learned as an entrepreneur that really helped me grow was this idea of having a framework on how I approached managing the business. The framework that I run specifically and that my company runs on is called the Entrepreneurial Operating System, EOS. It's from a book called Traction by Gino Wickman. If you haven't read that, I highly recommend you read that book. It's absolutely amazing. And what it does is it gives you a framework for managing the business from an entrepreneurial mindset and providing the kind of clarity that's needed and focus to understand, what should you be working on right now, who should be doing what, and how often are we communicating about it. There's a couple of things that came out of being on a system like EOS that were really beneficial for me personally. One of the big things that I remember in this transformation was, before I used to be the guy that if something showed up in my inbox, or I overheard a conversation or whatever it may be, and it was an issue for me, right then and there I would go march on over to whoever it was, my business partner, an employee, whoever, and we would discuss it right then and there. And essentially I was the guy blowing up everyone's day. Now, I'm not saying that I was an asshole about it. Like, I definitely approached it with some tact, but it still was interrupting their day. And so I was blowing up their day because it was important to Frank. So let's talk about it right now. And so because of the weekly meeting rhythm that we now have through EOS, I have a spot, I have an outlet for that now where I can discuss those things in a way that's still timely, but in a way that's constructive. And by the time we discuss it, one, it might not even be an issue anymore. Two, it's certainly way less emotional for me because a few days have gone by. It's just on the list. It's just some bullet point. And so that alone has allowed me to focus and bring clarity, and again, not go blow up someone else's day. The other thing I think that came out of that system that's really important is the weekly meeting rhythm that I mentioned. And the weekly meeting rhythm alone just gives you a way to keep moving and keep solving things and keep knocking issues down every single week by following a very set agenda with a very set protocol for how you're going to go about defining issues. What's an issue, what's not. What's a rock, for example, which in their system means essentially, for lack of a better word, like a quarterly project, and how you define, which rocks you choose because you can't do 100 of them in a given quarter. So an operating system for your business is critical. And once I got on that, man, things started to change dramatically. So the fourth lesson I've learned as an entrepreneur, the fourth thing that I would say that has helped me grow as an entrepreneur, is this idea of peer knowledge sharing. And so what I mean by that is just getting with other people that are in your industry, people that you might feel even are competitors, and letting your guard down, getting vulnerable, and just admitting where you suck, admitting that you don't have everything wired, admitting where you're struggling and where you could use some help. Because by getting together with people that are in your shoes, you're going to be able to learn from each other. And more importantly, when you get out of one simple mastermind like that, you'll be able to take action on things right away. I mean, I can't tell you, after those kinds of meetings, I'm able to the very next day implement change in the business and solve things so fast that otherwise I might just stew on for weeks or maybe even months. My business partner and I might be just, belaboring it for months and just like bitching and whining about it instead of, figuring out how to fix it because we're so paralyzed. But really all I had to do was sit down with a few other agency owners, explain what I'm struggling with, and boom, the feedback is incredible. And in return, I can do the same for them. So if you're not engaging in some sort of peer knowledge sharing, peer masterminding, you have to start doing that. You have to start admitting that you're not the man, you're not the woman, you don't know everything, and that's okay. Like, it's totally fine to not have all the answers. In fact, as you grow, the more you can admit you're not the one that has to have all the right answers, you just have to be the one to assemble the right team and ask the right questions, the more you're going to grow as an entrepreneur. So that's number 4. Start a peer knowledge sharing mastermind kind of group. And if you're afraid about competition, form it with people online that are not in your state, not in your region, that you feel that won't be competitive to you. But I would suggest that if you can just kind of let the competitive thing go for a moment and just get vulnerable and try it out, I promise you amazing things are going to happen if you do that. Okay, so the fifth and final thing that I would share with you, a lesson I've learned to grow as an entrepreneur, is this idea of letting go. And I wouldn't say I have any specific action items for you other than once I realized that the business didn't have to be 100% about things coming out of my brain, right? Concepts and ideas and direction that came out of my brain. Once I realized that and let go of certain things, we started to flourish and grow. Specifically, when I think about, even looking over little things where, is it this word or that word on the homepage? Is it, this design or that design? At the end of the day, some of those things just don't freaking matter. They don't. I think we're so close to the creative output of whatever it is that we do. And I believe everything we do is creative output, by the way. But sometimes we're so close to that creative output that we think it matters more than it actually does. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. All that matters is execution, focusing on something and executing it extremely well and being consistent and bringing other people in that can help you with that execution, that can own their specific areas of the business and their specific functions within the business. If the business model is really built around how brilliant you are as an entrepreneur, I promise you, you're going to hit a limit in your growth. If anything, at the very minimum, you'll hit your limit of growth financially from a revenue standpoint. But in my opinion, more importantly, you're going to hit your growth limit as an entrepreneur, as a person, as to the impact you're trying to make in the world. So I would highly encourage you to look at areas within your business where you're a control freak, where you have every bit of say on the marketing, and you also have every bit of say on how the sales process gets done. And by the way, how you produce what you produce, how you deliver value to your clients, your customers, you also have the final say there. If that's you and that's the kind of control you have on the business, I would challenge you to start looking at ways you can start letting go and let other people come in and own those functions. Because what are the odds that you're the absolute best employee for every single one of those functions? The odds are pretty low. And frankly, you just don't have enough time in a given day to be the master of all those areas. So you owe it to yourself, and you owe it to the people that work on your team to let them grow, let them own those areas, let them run with it. Stop obsessing over the little tiny mistakes. I've got a news flash for you. Shit's not gonna be perfect. There will be mistakes. You just need to let them go and look at the big picture at the end of the day. You're not gonna win every battle, right? You're trying to win the big picture war, right? And that war is a very long-term journey, right? That long-term goal, that long-term vision doesn't happen overnight. So stop obsessing about perfection. It will not be perfect. Your team might send out an email that has a typo in it. God forbid, right? Like at the end of the day, that shit doesn't matter and nobody cares. Nobody cares. So I would suggest get over yourself and start letting those amazing people that you have on your team do what they do. Right? Give them autonomy. We don't live in a world anymore where you gotta, everyone's looking at exactly the time you punch in and micromanagement. Those days are gone. And if you work in a company like that, or if you're creating a company like that, I promise you your days are numbered, because people don't want that anymore. And that's not the world we live in. So let go, find opportunities where you are amazing, and do the thing you're amazing at, and do that really well. And provide mentorship and cheerleading to the rest of the people on the team. Do that, and I promise you, you're not only going to grow financially, but you're going to grow up here, and that's what matters at the end of the day. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this episode of The Quite Frankly Show. Hope to see you back next time. Questions, comments, leave them below. We'll get back in touch with you soon.